The air in the living room felt heavy, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. On an expensive ivory leather sofa, Adrian Keller stared at his wife, Isabella Laurent, his eyes burning with fury. The face that was usually admired as that of a young, handsome, and charismatic CEO was now hardened with rage. Between them, on a solid oak coffee table, lay Isabella's phone. Its screen was still lit, displaying the image that had ignited the chaos. A photo of Adrian wrapped intimately around Vanessa Moreau, his colleague, at an upscale rooftop restaurant overlooking the glittering skyline of New York City. It wasn't just a casual embrace, it was unmistakably intimate, leaving no room for doubt. Isabella sat upright, her posture composed. Unlike her husband, who looked like a volcano on the verge of eruption, she appeared unnervingly calm. No tears, no hysterics, just a cold silence that cut deeper than any insult. That silence only fueled Adrian's anger. He felt belittled. She should have cried, begged, at the very least shown pain. But the woman in front of him simply watched him with an unreadable gaze, as if his betrayal wasn't a tragedy, but merely an unremarkable fact. "Where did you get that photo?" Adrian snapped, his voice echoing through the spacious room filled with imported furniture. "Did you hire someone to spy on me? You violated my privacy." Isabella swallowed her bitterness. Not an apology, not remorse. Just accusation. She took a slow breath, steadying her voice. "Does it really matter where I got it, Adrian? What matters is what's in the photo. Can you explain it?" "Explain what?" Adrian let out a cold, mocking laugh. "It's already obvious, isn't it? You don't need an explanation. You just need to understand your place." His voice turned sharper. "I'm tired of you, Isabella. Tired of your dull, lifeless attitude, cold as ice. Do you think I can survive with a wife who feels like a walking corpse? Vanessa gives me what you never could: passion, energy, appreciation." Every word was a blade aimed straight at her heart. All this time, Isabella hadn't been silent because she was lifeless. She had been patient, observing, waiting, giving chances. Chances she now realized had all been wasted. She believed her patience would change him, that he would grow into a better man, a leader worthy of his family's legacy. How naive she had been. At that moment, the master bedroom door opened. Eleanor Whittemore, her mother-in-law, stepped out in an elegant silk nightgown. Her face, still perfectly made up, showed clear irritation at being disturbed. "What is all this noise?" she snapped. "Adrian, do you have any idea what time it is? You have an important board meeting tomorrow." Her gaze shifted to Isabella, instantly turning to disdain. "Oh, of course, it's you again. What problem have you caused this time? Can't you let my son have a moment of peace?" Adrian immediately seized the opportunity. "Look at this mother. She dares accuse me of cheating. She even hired someone to spy on me. Unbelievable." Eleanor walked closer, glanced briefly at the phone, and scoffed dismissively. Instead of anger towards her son, her judgment fell entirely on Isabella. "And what if it's true?" she said coldly. "You should be reflecting on yourself, Isabella. Why would your husband look elsewhere for happiness? Clearly you've failed him." Her voice sharpened with every word. "You couldn't even give him a child. You're plain. You don't take care of your appearance. What kind of woman are you? You should be grateful Adrian even married you and gave you this luxurious life." Isabella felt her blood boil, but her face remained unreadable. So in their eyes, everything was her fault. Her inability to conceive, something not even proven to be her issue, her simplicity, her quiet nature. all of it justified Adrian's betrayal. And she, the one who had been wronged, is the one expected to reflect. "You're nothing but a freeloader in this house," Eleanor continued, pointing at her. "Everything you enjoy, this house, these cars, it's all my son's hard work. You have no right to control his life." Isabella looked at the older woman, then at her husband, who now stood proudly, fully validated. This was who they really were. Arrogant, selfish, condescending. The respectable family image they displayed to the public shattered completely before her tonight. Enough. Adrian stepped closer, towering over her with a superior gaze. "I'm done with you," he said coldly. "I don't want to see your face in my bedroom tonight." His voice dropped, heavy with threat. "You'll sleep in the storage room, and until you apologize and kneel at my feet for daring to accuse me, don't expect to come back." The ultimatum was absolute, humiliating. Sleep in the storage room, like a servant being punished? Kneel at his feet, like a slave begging for forgiveness? Adrian and his mother waited. They expected tears, resistance, shock, but Isabella remained still and silent. But what they got was far beyond anything they had expected. Isabella slowly rose to her feet. She looked at Adrian, then at Eleanor. A faint, mysterious smile curved on her lips. It wasn't a smile of pain, nor fear. It was something else entirely. Something that made both of them feel an unexplainable chill creeping down their spines. Then, in a calm and steady voice, she said, "All right, fine." That single sentence made Adrian and Eleanor freeze for a moment. That was it? No drama? No resistance? Isabella turned and walked toward the back door leading to the storage room without looking back even once. Her steps were firm, unhurried. That calmness felt like an insult, as if their punishment meant absolutely nothing to her. "Look at her, Mom, that ungrateful woman," Adrian muttered, trying to mask the strange unease rising in his chest. Eleanor scoffed. "Let her be. By tomorrow morning she'll be crying, begging to come back. What can a weak woman like her even do?" Isabella continued walking down the dim hallway toward the back of the house. The storage room door was made of heavy, aged oak. She opened it without hesitation. A musty smell of dust and neglect greeted her instantly. The room was dark, stifling, filled with piles of forgotten things, broken furniture, boxes of old documents, and Adrian's childhood belongings long abandoned. A dumping ground, a place for everything considered worthless. Exactly how they saw her. As soon as the door closed behind her, cutting her off from that illusion of luxury, the smile on Isabella's face vanished. Her expression turned cold, hard as steel. Her once empty eyes now gleamed sharply in the darkness. She didn't turn on the light. The faint moonlight filtering through a small window above was enough. She slipped her hand into the pocket of her house dress, not to take out a handkerchief, but something Adrian and everyone in that house had never known existed. A second phone, slim, black, no social media apps, only encrypted contacts, and access to a world they could never imagine. Her fingers moved swiftly across the screen, opening a secure messaging app. She typed a short message to a contact saved under one name, Oracle, a message that would mark the beginning of a storm of destruction. Initiate the collapse protocol. Start with his personal assets. She sent it.
then slipped the phone back into her pocket. She looked around at the piles of discarded junk. They thought locking her in here was punishment. They thought they had humiliated her. They were terribly wrong. They weren't locking up a helpless lamb. They had just awakened a sleeping lioness inside her own kingdom. This night in the storage room was not punishment. It was a declaration of war. In the suffocating darkness, Isabella's mind drifted back. 3 years ago, in the serene garden behind a private hospital in Boston, her father sat weakly in a wheelchair, holding her hand. His face looked frail, but his eyes still carried the same sharp intelligence. Victor Laurent, founder of Laurent Global Holdings, a massive conglomerate, the very parent company where Adrian worked, gave her an unusual final request. "Isabella, I know you love Adrian. I've looked into his background. He's intelligent, ambitious, hard-working. He has the potential to become a great leader." He paused. "But power alone is never enough. My dear, character is what matters most. Power is like a hammer. In the right hands, it builds empires. In the wrong hands, it destroys everything." Young Isabella listened carefully. "Then what should I do, father?" Victor exhaled slowly. "I will bless your marriage. I will even place him as CEO of one of our subsidiaries, give him the power he desires. But there's one condition. Hide your identity. Let him know you only as Isabella, a simple orphan girl. Do not reveal your wealth. Do not reveal your power. Watch how he treats you when he stands at the top, believing you are at the bottom. That is the true test of character." He tightened his grip on her hand. "If he continues to love you, respect you, and becomes a wise leader, then everything I own will belong to both of you. But if he becomes arrogant, belittles you, and abuses his power," his voice grew firm, "then you know what to do. Take back everything that is yours." That final wish had guided Isabella for 3 years of marriage. She played the role of a simple wife perfectly. She stayed silent when Eleanor flaunted luxury handbags, bought, in truth, with her own family's wealth. She smiled patiently when Adrian boasted about his achievements, never knowing every step he took was approved by a board loyal to the Laurent family. She endured every insult, every humiliation, still hoping he would pass her father's test. But tonight, all hope was gone. Adrian hadn't just failed, he had completely destroyed himself in that test. Back in the present, Isabella sat on an old wooden crate. The cold air didn't make her shiver. Her heart burned instead. Her resolution was absolute. The time for pretending was over. Now, the queen would reclaim her throne. Her secret phone vibrated. A reply from Oracle. David, her most trusted confidant. "Protocol activated, Miss Laurent. All personal assets under Adrian Keller linked to Laurent Global Holdings are currently being frozen. What are your next instructions?" Isabella didn't reply by text. She pressed the call button. The line connected instantly. "Miss Laurent?" "David." Her voice was calm, cold, lethal.
"I want you to contact our legal team," Isabella said coldly. "Have Mr. Hayes handle it personally. Prepare the divorce papers. Demand a 0% marital asset split. Attach the prenuptial agreement Adrian signed. Also file for emotional damages. Include all evidence of his affair. I want those documents on my vanity table tomorrow morning before 8 a.m. Yes, Miss Laurent, It will be done immediately. Next, contact the bank. Block all supplementary credit cards under Adrian Keller's name and his mother's. Transfer all funds from our joint accounts into my personal account. I don't want a single dollar left there. Do it tonight. Understood, miss. And lastly, prepare an extraordinary shareholders meeting as soon as possible. Main agenda: evaluation of the CEO's performance and integrity. Adrian Keller. I want the invitation delivered to him tomorrow afternoon, at his office, in front of all his employees. There was a brief pause on the other end. Miss, this means open war. Isabella's voice turned ice cold. This isn't war, David. It's an execution. Proceed. After ending the call, Isabella leaned against the dusty wall. For the first time in a long while, she felt light, as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted from her shoulders. There was no sadness left. Her love for Adrian had long been eroded by arrogance, betrayal, and humiliation, and tonight it died completely, buried beneath the ruins of everything he had done to her. Meanwhile, across the city in New York City, Adrian and Vanessa were celebrating. They sat at one of the most exclusive rooftop bars, glasses of expensive wine in hand. The glittering skyline stretched behind them like a kingdom they believed they owned. "I still can't believe it," Adrian laughed, mimicking Isabella mockingly. "All right, fine. That's all she said." He smirked. The look on her face was priceless. I think she finally realized who's in control. Vanessa smiled slyly, resting her head on his shoulder. "I told you, darling, women like her need to be taught a lesson. She's too soft, no challenge at all. She thought showing that photo would make you kneel. How pathetic." Adrian scoffed, finishing his wine. "She's naive. She thinks marriage is about love and loyalty." He leaned back, confidence radiating from him. "It's about power, Vanessa, and I'm the one who holds it. Tomorrow morning, when she comes crawling out of that storage room in tears, I'll make her kneel and kiss my feet. Only then I might consider forgiving her." "That's so cruel," Vanessa whispered sweetly. But her eyes sparkled with triumph. She believed she had fully taken Adrian away from his wife. In her mind, it was only a matter of time before she became Mrs. Keller, living in luxury, enjoying status, power, and admiration. She had no idea. Everything she desired was nothing more than a sandcastle, about to be washed away by a rising tide. They kept laughing, drinking, planning their future. New business deals Adrian believed he would win, luxury vacations across Europe, and how they would slowly push Isabella out of his life. They were intoxicated by temporary victory, completely unaware an invisible web was already being woven around them, ready to trap and destroy. Back in the storage room, Isabella did not sleep. She planned every detail. Her mind moved with speed and precision, like a general on a battlefield. She knew Adrian's weakness wasn't just his arrogance, it was his dependence on status, on facilities, on image. She would take everything, one by one, until he panicked, until he lost control, until he felt powerless, just like he had tried to make her feel tonight. Just before dawn, her phone vibrated again. A message from her lawyer. "Miss Laurent, all documents are ready. Our team will place them in your room as instructed. The extraordinary shareholders notice is also prepared. We will ensure he receives it at the most humiliating moment possible." Isabella read the message, and for the first time that night, she smiled. A real smile, not mysterious, not cold, but satisfied. Dawn began to break.
Golden light slipped through the small window, chasing away the darkness of the storage room. For Adrian and Eleanor, it was just another morning. But for Isabella, it was the dawn of a new era. An era of retribution had begun. Adrian woke up with a pounding headache. The sharp morning sunlight pierced through the gaps in the heavy curtains. The remnants of last night's alcohol still lingered in his body, leaving nausea and exhaustion behind. He stretched lazily on the massive king-bed bed. His hand instinctively reached for the other side. Empty. Cold. Of course, he smirked. Isabella must be curled up in that filthy storage room, terrified. He imagined her, eyes swollen from crying all night, shivering in the cold, filled with regret. Soon she would come knocking, begging, apologizing, willing to do anything, even kneel at his feet, just to be let back in. The thought filled him with immense satisfaction, like a king who had just punished a disobedient subject. With arrogance in every step, he got out of bed and walked into the bathroom. After freshening up, he put on a silk robe and stepped out into the hallway, expecting to see a broken wife waiting at his door. But the corridor was empty, silent. No sign of Isabella. Adrian frowned. That was strange.
Was the punishment not harsh enough? Adrian muttered. Is that woman still being stubborn? Irritation began creeping through him. He walked toward the dining room. The table, which was usually filled with a warm breakfast, was now completely empty. The house staff moved in tense silence, avoiding eye contact. "Where is Isabella?" Adrian snapped at one of the maids cleaning the table. The middle-aged woman startled, visibly nervous. I haven't seen Mrs. Laurent this morning, sir." Adrian scoffed. "She's still in the storage room. Good. Leave her there. Don't give her any food or water until I say so." Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked back toward the master bedroom. He needed coffee and clean clothes for work. His mood, already foul, was worsening. Still grumbling, he opened the massive walk-in closet that covered an entire wall, and in that instant, his heart seemed to stop. The right side, his side, remained perfectly intact. Expensive suits, designer shirts, his luxury watch collection, all neatly arranged. But the left side, Isabella's side, was completely empty. Not just partially empty, completely. Not a single blouse, not a dress, not a skirt or a pair of pants. The shelves where she kept her modest handbags were bare. The drawers, once filled with her belongings, now held nothing but air. Even the small jewelry box in the corner was gone. It was as if she had never existed in that room. This wasn't someone storming out in anger. This was a clean operation, planned, efficient, cold. Adrian's breath caught in his throat. A strange panic began creeping into his chest. He rushed to the vanity table, the place where Isabella used to sit. It was spotless. No skincare bottles, no comb, nothing, except one single object, a thick brown envelope placed precisely at the center of the polished surface. With trembling hands, Adrian grabbed it and tore it open. Inside, a neatly bound stack of official documents. The first page read in bold, cold capital letters, "Divorce petition." The world around him seemed to spin. He read line after line, eyes widening. Petitioner, Isabella Laurent. Respondent, Adrian Keller. Grounds, adultery and emotional abuse. Attachments, dozens of photos, his affair with Vanessa, chat transcripts, hotel receipts. But that wasn't what shocked him the most. His eyes froze on the demands section. Isabella wasn't asking for asset division.
Instead, she demanded the full reclamation of all assets under Adrian's name during the marriage, based on prenuptial agreement number 08-PNX-2022, a clause stating that all assets were the exclusive property of Isabella Laurent. "That's impossible," Adrian whispered. "The prenup? Yes, he had signed it, but he had treated it as nothing more than a formality. His lawyer had told him it was standard. He never read it carefully, too busy basking in the excitement of marrying a beautiful woman and securing his position." At that moment, Eleanor entered the room without knocking. "Adrian, why aren't you ready yet? I'm starving. No one prepared breakfast," she complained. Then she noticed the papers in his hand and his pale face. "What's going on?" Adrian handed them the documents, his hands shaking. "Isabella, she's filing for divorce." Eleanor skimmed through it, then let out a mocking laugh. "Oh, please, it's just a bluff. A poor woman like her, what will she live on after divorcing you? She's doing this to make you beg. Don't fall for it, Adrian. Just ignore her. She'll come crawling back crying. She has nothing without you." Her words should have been reassuring, but this time they weren't. The empty closet felt too real, the documents too professional, too precise. This didn't feel like a bluff. Still, his ego refused to accept it. His mother had to be right. Isabella was just an orphan girl he had taken in. What could she possibly do? Just as he tried to convince himself, his phone rang. The caller ID read, "Platinum Banking Relationship Manager." He quickly answered, hoping for some distraction. "Good morning. Am I speaking with Mr. Adrian Keller?" The voice on the other end was formal, cold. "Yes, this is Adrian. We would like to inform you that all your credit card facilities, including supplementary cards under Mrs. Whitmore's name, have been blocked effective 1 hour ago." Adrian froze. "What? Blocked? On what grounds? I've never missed a payment." "That is correct, sir. Your payments have always been excellent. However, the block was requested directly by the primary account holder." Adrian's voice rose. "I'm the primary account holder." A brief pause. "According to our records, the primary holder of this platinum account is Mrs. Isabella Laurent. You are listed as a supplementary card holder." Silence. Adrian couldn't breathe. His heart felt like it was being crushed. How was that even possible? Before he could process it, a notification appeared on his phone. An email. The subject line made his blood run cold. "Full withdrawal notice. Joint account." With stiff fingers, he opened it. The message was short, brutal. A formal notification from the bank. All funds from their joint account, including the account where his multi-million-dollar bonuses had been deposited, had been completely withdrawn, just minutes ago, by the priority account holder, Isabella Laurent.
At the bottom of his email, the remaining balance of his account was displayed. A humiliating number, an impossible number. 0. Adrian stared at his phone screen, then at his mother, still dismissing everything, then back at the divorce papers in his hand. The arrogant smirk he once wore had completely vanished, replaced by a pale, terrified expression. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't the anger of a jealous wife. This was an attack. Fast, silent, devastating. And for the first time, he realized he had never truly known the woman he had shared a bed with for the past 3 years. His head spun, not from last night's alcohol, but from pure shock and panic. 0. The number echoed endlessly in his mind. All his hard work, all the multi-million-dollar bonuses he'd bragged about, gone. In an instant. "How? Isabella?" he muttered. "That quiet woman, whose monthly expenses were less than the fuel cost of his sports car. How could she do this? Primary card holder? Priority account owner? The questions slammed into him relentlessly. Adrian, what's wrong with you? Eleanor asked, now beginning to sense something was off. He didn't answer. He tossed his phone onto the bed and hurriedly put on his work clothes. His thoughts were chaos. There had to be a mistake, a hacker, a scam. Isabella couldn't possibly be capable of something like this. He needed to get to the bank, to the office, to fix everything. While rushing to put on his tie, he grabbed his car keys and stormed out. The drive to the office felt like a nightmare. He sped through traffic, ignoring honks and curses from other drivers. He tried calling his private banking manager, the man who always greeted him with a wide smile and opened doors for him. Straight to voicemail. He called again and again. Same result, as if his number had been blocked. A cold sensation crept down his spine. This was too coordinated to be a coincidence. It was as if every door that had always been open to him had suddenly slammed shut at once. The ego that had protected him for so long began to crack, revealing fear beneath it. When he arrived at the towering office building in New York City, where he ruled as CEO, he forced himself to walk in with authority. But something felt different. Employees in the lobby whispered as he passed, glancing at him, then quickly lowering their heads when he looked back. His secretary, Olivia Grant, greeted him in front of the executive elevator. Her face was tense. "Good morning, sir. There are several urgent issues this morning," she said nervously. "I know. Schedule a meeting with finance and legal immediately," Adrian ordered, stepping into his office. Inside his spacious office overlooking the city, he threw his briefcase on the sofa and sat in his executive chair, trying to regain the sense of control and power he was used to feeling here. But before he could even breathe, the intercom buzzed. Olivia's voice came through, panicked. "Sir, a call from Mr. Jonathan Price, the Sendana project manager. He says it's critical." Adrian pressed the speaker button. The Sendana project was a massive infrastructure tender worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Winning it would elevate both him and the company to another level. "Yes, Jonathan, what is it?" "Sir, we have a problem." Jonathan's voice trembled. "The main consortium client just sent an email. They've withdrawn us from the final tender." Adrian froze. "Withdrawn? On what grounds? We were the strongest bidder. Our presentation was flawless." "There's no detailed explanation, sir," Jonathan replied. "The email is very short, very formal. They stated they're withdrawing support due to internal integrity concerns." Internal integrity. The words hit like a slap across his face. Before he could process it, another knock. A manager from the investment department entered without waiting. His face was pale. "Sir, the investment fund from venture capital group Meridian has pulled all their funding, effective immediately. They're requesting emergency liquidation. This will severely impact our cash flow." One after another, bad news poured in, like a sudden storm. A major supplier refused to deliver materials unless old debts were paid in cash. Several key managers, loyal to him, submitted resignation letters simultaneously. The company he ruled with an iron grip, the one he believed was firmly in his control, was now shaking violently, on the verge of collapse. Vanessa rushed into his office, panic written all over her face. Her eyes were red. "Adrian, what's happening? I heard the Sendana project was canceled." "I don't know," Adrian snapped, his frustration exploding. "Everything is falling apart. Check our last quarter financial data. Look for anything unusual. Check all emails from clients and investors." Vanessa nodded quickly and sat at the guest computer in the corner. She tried logging into the company's internal system. A few moments passed. Then she frowned at the screen. "This is strange. I can't log in. My access is denied. It says, contact system administrator."
"What do you mean denied? You have manager-level access." His chest tightened. He was being surrounded from every direction. His personal finances destroyed, and now his professional empire under brutal attack.
Everyone and everything Adrian had always relied on was now turning against him. At the peak of chaos and desperation, as his office filled with confused managers and phones ringing nonstop, a receptionist staff member rushed in, out of breath. "Sir Adrian, I'm sorry. A courier in official uniform forced his way in. He said this document must be delivered directly to you." The staff member handed over a large gold envelope sealed with wax, formal and intimidating. Adrian grabbed it roughly. In front of his managers, he tore it open. Inside was an invitation printed on thick, high-quality paper. His eyes scanned the elegant calligraphy. "Extraordinary Shareholders Meeting Invitation." His heart pounded. He read further down. "Agenda. Opening by the Board of Commissioners. Comprehensive evaluation of the performance and integrity of the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Adrian Keller. Vote of no confidence." This was not just a meeting. This was a summons to the gallows, a death sentence for his career. All strength drained from Adrian's body. He stood frozen, humiliated, surrounded by managers who now looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and pity. He was completely alone. The intercom buzzed again. Olivia's voice was hesitant. "Sir, there's a call from Human Resources. They're requesting that Manager Vanessa Moreau report to their office immediately." Adrian turned toward Vanessa. Her face turned pale instantly. This attack wasn't just aimed at him. Isabella was destroying his ally as well. Amid the ruins of his empire, finally, Adrian realized something terrifying. The quiet woman he had underestimated was a master chess player. Every move had been calculated, every piece already in position, and he, the arrogant king, had nowhere left to escape. Vanessa walked down the carpeted corridor toward the HR department. Her usual confident stride now carried hesitation. A call from HR was unusual, but the timing felt wrong. Very wrong. Maybe it's just administrative, or a routine evaluation, she thought, trying to calm herself. She was a high-performing manager, and more importantly, she was Adrian's favorite. Who would dare touch her? But the moment she opened the HR meeting room door, her confidence evaporated. The room felt cold, sterile. Inside, not only the HR head, but 3 unfamiliar individuals sat across the long table, all dressed in expensive dark suits, serious. In front of them, a thick stack of documents and a laptop, screen deliberately turned toward her. The HR head sat quietly in the corner, tense, like nothing more than a spectator. "Good afternoon, Ms. Moreau. Please have a seat," one of the men said flatly. His nameplate read, "Internal Compliance Audit Team." Vanessa's heart began to race. This wasn't an HR meeting. This was an interrogation. She sat down stiffly, the chair feeling cold beneath her, trying to maintain composure. "Is there something I can assist with?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he slid a document toward her. "Could you explain your business trip expense report to Singapore last month? Specifically, the accommodation and client entertainment costs totaling $20,000. Vanessa frowned. That was an important trip for client negotiations. Everything was approved by Mr. Keller. She deliberately emphasized Adrian's name, using it as a shield. "We are aware it was approved," the woman beside him said,
opening the laptop. She turned the screen toward Vanessa. "What we want to know is why the hotel invoice you submitted is from Marina Bay Sands Hotel, while immigration and airline records show you never left the United States on those dates, and the client you listed, we contacted them. They confirmed they never met any representative of our company last month." The color drained from Vanessa's face. How did they know? Fabricated reports like this? She had done them before, on a smaller scale. Adrian had always ignored it, sometimes even benefited from it. She opened her mouth to deny, but another document was pushed toward her. "This is a copy of your bank account. We found multiple transfers from Apex Supply Solutions, one of our office supply vendors, totaling approximately $35,000 over the past 6 months. Coincidentally, during that same period, our company paid that vendor 30% above market price. Would you like to explain that?" Vanessa began to panic. Cold sweat formed on her temples. This wasn't an accusation. This was evidence, undeniable. "This must be a misunderstanding. I can explain to Mr. Keller." "Mr. Keller cannot help you." Now, let's move to the most serious violation. He opened a red folder. Inside were printed emails and chat transcripts. "We have discovered that over the past 3 months, you have systematically leaked internal data to a private email address of Richard Coleman, director of Sterling Infrastructure Group, our direct competitor, including details of the Sendana project tender, our bidding strategy, confidential pricing lists." This time, Vanessa couldn't say a word. Her entire body trembled. She felt completely exposed.
All her corruption was exposed, layer by layer, under the cold gaze of the auditors. She had betrayed the company, sold confidential data for personal gain, all in exchange for promises of a higher position from Richard Coleman if they succeeded in bringing Adrian's company down. "This is slander! The evidence must be fake! You're setting me up!" Vanessa screamed in desperation. The female auditor only looked at her with faint pity. "All digital data has been verified by our forensic team. Server logs don't lie, Miss Moreau. The IP address matches the networks you used, both at the office and your apartment." Vanessa's breathing became heavy. It was over. Her career, her reputation, everything destroyed. In panic, she reached for her last weapon. "You can't do this to me! I'm Adrian Keller's partner! He won't let this happen!" The head of the audit team leaned back slightly, his gaze sharp. "First, your personal relationship with the CEO is irrelevant to the corporate crimes you committed. Second, as we have already stated, the CEO's authority is currently under serious review by the Board of Commissioners and shareholders. He is not in a position to protect anyone, not even himself." The words hit Vanessa like a sledgehammer. So Adrian was truly powerless. She had made the wrong bet. She thought he was a powerful king, but in reality, he was just a piece on the board, about to be removed. The head of HR finally spoke, voice trembling. "Based on the overwhelming evidence, the company has decided to terminate your employment effective immediately. You are required to return all company assets. Your access to all systems has been revoked. We will also proceed with legal action for embezzlement and industrial espionage." Fired. Reported to the authorities. Prison looming ahead. Vanessa's world collapsed instantly. 2 security officers entered the room. They escorted her to collect her belongings, and then out of the building. The walk of shame, the most humiliating moment for any employee.
As she was led through the busy office floor, all eyes turned to her. Employees who once flattered her now watched with ridicule and curiosity. Whispers filled the air. As she passed Adrian's office, the door was open. She saw him standing there, surrounded by managers, looking completely powerless. Rage and desperation exploded inside her. She had been sacrificed. She shoved the security officers aside and screamed at the top of her lungs so everyone could hear. "Adrian, this is a setup! This is all your wife's doing!" Adrian stared at her blankly, still too shocked to react. "She's not the weak woman you think she is, you idiot! She's the one behind all of this. She's the one destroying us. Wake up, Adrian! Wake up before it's too late!" Her hysterical screams echoed across the entire floor before security finally restrained her and dragged her toward the elevator. But her final words, born from panic and hatred, were terrifyingly true. They echoed in Adrian's mind, cutting through the fog of confusion. Isabella, his boring, weak wife. How could it be? Yet deep inside, a cold seed of fear began to grow. Who was the woman he had humiliated and locked in the storage room last night? Far from the chaos at Adrian's office, in an elite residential neighborhood, Eleanor Whittemore was enjoying her morning. She sat on the back terrace of her luxurious home, sipping imported tea, admiring the perfectly manicured garden and the crystal blue swimming pool. Today was her social circle's monthly gathering, and she was the host. Everything had been prepared: catering from the finest service, fresh floral decorations, her newest dress and jewelry ready to impress and provoke envy. She wasn't worried at all about Isabella's divorce threat. To her, it was nothing more than the whining of a weak woman, something that would soon pass. In fact, she felt pleased. Last night had proven that Adrian was fully in control. Soon that useless daughter-in-law would be gone, and she could find him a better wife, someone beautiful, wealthy, and capable of giving her grandchildren. Smiling in satisfaction at that imagined future, she heard the doorbell ring. Ah, they must have arrived, she thought, her socialite friends. She quickly adjusted her appearance and walked gracefully to the front door, ready to greet them with a superior smile. But when the maid opened the door, the people standing outside were not her friends. 3 formally dressed men. Strangers. "Good afternoon. We're looking for Mrs. Whittemore," the man in the center said, showing his identification. He was a representative from the credit department of a major bank. "I am Mrs. Whittemore," Eleanor replied coldly, slightly annoyed at their timing. "What is this about?" "We're here regarding the overdue mortgage payments on this property, ma'am. According to our records, the last 3 payments have failed to be automatically debited from the responsible account under Mr. Adrian Keller. As per procedure, we have sent prior notices, but received no response." The man paused briefly, then delivered the blow. "Therefore, we regret to inform you that the bank is initiating asset foreclosure proceedings, effective today." Eleanor stared at him as if he had gone insane. "Foreclosure? Overdue payments? What are you talking about? My son is a CEO. He would never miss payments. This must be a mistake."
"We guarantee there is no mistake, ma'am. The account balance is insufficient. Our foreclosure order is legally valid," the man said calmly as he handed over a stack of official documents. Just as Eleanor Whittemore was about to lash out again, a large tow truck pulled up in front of her gate. 2 uniformed men stepped out, representatives from a vehicle financing company. "Excuse us, ma'am. We're here to repossess the luxury sedan registered under Mr. Adrian Keller due to 3 months of missed payments." Eleanor's world collapsed instantly. Her house was being seized, her prized luxury car was being taken away, and worst of all, her social circle had begun to arrive. Luxury cars slowed down in the distance. Her high society friends watched the unfolding chaos with shock and barely concealed curiosity. The same women who once admired her now looked on with quiet mockery. "Wait, don't touch my car! Do you know who I am?" Eleanor screamed, her humiliation turning into rage. "My son is Adrian Keller. He'll sue all of you into bankruptcy." Her threats meant nothing. The officers continued their work with cold efficiency. A foreclosure notice was posted on her gate while the car was lifted onto the tow truck. One by one, her socialite friends turned their cars around and drove away, already calling others, spreading the most scandalous gossip of the day. In mere minutes, her glittering world shattered. Her status, built upon her son's wealth, crumbled completely. Left alone in front of a house that was no longer hers, Eleanor collapsed into hysterical sobs. She ran inside, grabbed her phone, and called Adrian. "Adrian, what is happening? The bank is here. They're taking the house. They took my car, too. Where are you? Fix this immediately." On the other end, his voice sounded exhausted, broken. "I can't, Mom. It's over. Everything. It's all over." "What do you mean over? You're a CEO. Use your power." "I don't have any power left. Everything's been frozen. Projects canceled. I'm about to be fired." Her sobbing intensified. "This is all because of that cursed woman, Isabella." In a frenzy, Eleanor began tearing through drawers in Adrian's study, searching for anything, documents, certificates, anything she could use to fight back. Then her hand touched a dusty folder. Curious, she opened it. Inside was the prenuptial agreement between Adrian and Isabella, the same document she once dismissed as meaningless. Back then, she had laughed at it. Why would it matter? Isabella had nothing, or so she thought. Driven by a growing sense of dread, she began reading. Most of it was dense legal language she barely understood, but then her eyes froze on Clause 4, Asset Ownership. She read it once, then again, and again. Each word struck harder than the loss of her home or car. It is agreed by both parties that all assets, movable or immovable, acquired or utilized by the second party, Adrian Keller, during the marriage, including but not limited to properties, vehicles, shares in affiliated companies, and account balances whose funding originates from the first party or entities affiliated with the first party's family, shall remain the absolute property of the first party, Isabella Laurent. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled violently. So the house, the car, the wealth, everything she had enjoyed, everything Adrian had earned as CEO, none of it belonged to them. It was all Isabella's. They had lost nothing because they had never owned anything to begin with. They had merely been living off the wealth of the very woman they mocked, humiliated, and treated as worthless. The truth hit her like a violent storm. She collapsed onto the floor, powerless, inside a mansion that was nothing more than borrowed luxury. Meanwhile, Adrian Keller sat frozen in his CEO chair. The office that once felt like the center of his universe now felt like an expensive coffin. The phones that once rang endlessly were now silent. The managers who had filled his office earlier had all left, not because the crisis was resolved, but because they knew there was nothing left to save. The captain had already drowned, even before the ship fully sank. Vanessa's final scream echoed in his mind. "This is all your wife's doing. She's not who you think she is." Then her mother's sobbing voice mentioning the prenuptial agreement and how everything belonged to Isabella.
Those two pieces of truth merged into something terrifying. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't a coincidence. This was design, a calculated, precise, merciless destruction. And the architect behind it all was the same woman he'd locked in a dusty storage room. The same woman he'd called boring, weak, insignificant. A cold fear, one he had never known before, crept up his spine. Who is Isabella Laurent? That question struck him with full force. For 3 years of marriage, he had never truly cared to find out. He only knew the story she chose to show him. And now, he realized, he had been living inside a lie.
An orphan. A graduate from an ordinary university. Working as an administrative staff member in a small company when they first met. That was the story Isabella had given him. Adrian had been captivated by her beauty and her calm demeanor, seeing her as a perfect blank canvas, one he could paint with his wealth and status. He had never bothered to ask deeper questions, never cared about her family, her past, her origins. He had been far too busy showcasing his own background. In his mind, Isabella was lucky to be chosen by him. How arrogant, how blind. Now that arrogance had evaporated, replaced by suffocating despair. He had to know. He needed to know who his enemy really was. He could no longer rely on his corporate connections. He realized now that those same connections might already be working against him. He needed someone outside the system, someone from the gray world. With trembling hands, Adrian opened his desk drawer and searched for an old business card given to him at an event long ago. A private investigator, Demas, a former intelligence officer who now ran his own investigative bureau, known for uncovering even the most deeply buried secrets, for a price. Adrian pulled out the last remaining cash from his wallet. It wasn't much, just leftovers from the previous night, but he hoped it would be enough as a down payment. They met in a dimly lit cafe on the outskirts of New York City, far from the towering skyscrapers where Adrian once held power. Adrian's disheveled appearance and restless eyes contrasted sharply with Demas's cold composure. "I want you to find everything about someone," Adrian said bluntly. He placed a wedding photo of himself and Isabella on the table. "Her name is Isabella Laurent. That's her. I want to know who she really is. Her family, her background, her assets. Everything." Demas glanced at the photo, then studied Adrian carefully. "This is your wife, isn't it?" Adrian swallowed hard. "That's not important. Just do it. How much?" "For a deep investigation like this, the fee is $100,000, Demas replied flatly. Adrian flinched. That amount now felt impossibly out of reach. "My accounts are having issues. I can give you $10,000 up front, cash. I'll pay the rest once this situation is resolved," he said, his voice laced with humiliation. Demas looked at the cash, then back at Adrian's desperate face. After a moment, he nodded. "Fine, give me 24 hours. Those 24 hours became the longest torture of Adrian's life. He didn't return to the office. What was the point? He didn't go home either. The house would soon be seized. Instead, he rented a cheap, run-down hotel room, paying with his remaining cash. Inside that foul-smelling room, he paced like a trapped animal, waiting for Demas's call. Every ringtone made his heart jump, but it was never Demas.
only debt collectors or business reporters who had somehow already caught wind of his downfall. Finally, after nearly 24 hours, Demas's name appeared on his screen. Adrian answered immediately, holding his breath. "Well, what did you find?" Demas's voice sounded different, tense, uneasy. "Mr. Keller, I strongly advise you to stop. Forget all of this." "What do you mean stop? I paid you to find information," Adrian snapped. "This isn't about money," Demas said quickly, lowering his voice. "The person you asked me to investigate, she's not ordinary." Adrian's chest tightened. "I tried accessing her civil records. Everything is locked behind state-level encryption. I checked her education, classified. I searched her digital footprint, clean, like she doesn't exist. Every time I tried to dig deeper, my system triggered security warnings. This isn't normal. This is like trying to breach government intelligence databases. Sir, this is beyond me." A cold chill ran through Adrian. "So, you found nothing?" "I didn't say that," Demas replied. "I found one thing, the only piece of information they didn't hide. Maybe because they thought no one would be able to connect it." Adrian's heart pounded. "What is it?" There was a pause. Demas swallowed audibly. "It's a name, listed as the primary owner of a skyscraper in the central business district." Adrian's pulse spiked. "What building?" Demas's voice dropped even lower. "Sir, I can't go further. The data is heavily protected. But the name listed is Isabella Laurent. She's registered as the owner of Laurent Tower, the headquarters of Laurent Global Holdings." The phone remained pressed against Adrian's ear, but he heard nothing anymore. Demas's voice, the noise of traffic outside, even his own heartbeat, all vanished. Only one name echoed inside his hollow mind. Laurent Laurent. Laurent Global Holdings. Laurent Tower. The puzzle pieces finally clicked together, loud, deafening, forming a picture so massive, so powerful, so terrifying that he couldn't fully comprehend it. The parent company, the empire, the company he worked for, was merely a small branch of a vast kingdom, and the woman he treated like dust was the queen who owned it all. It felt like being struck by lightning in broad daylight. That was the only way to describe what Adrian felt. His mind, once sharp and strategic, was now completely paralyzed. Laurent Global Holdings, a business empire spanning real estate, banking, technology, a name he had always spoken with admiration, a circle he once dreamed of entering. And now, he realized the truth. He had already been inside it all, as nothing more than a pawn.
And all this time, he had been sleeping beside the owner of it all. Without thinking, driven by disbelief, fear, and a desperate sliver of hope that this was all some kind of misunderstanding, Adrian ran out of that filthy hotel room. He no longer cared about his disheveled appearance or the strange looks from people around him. He had only one destination, Laurent Tower. He had to see it with his own eyes. He had to meet Isabella. He flagged down a taxi and gave the address. During the ride, the city he once viewed through the windows of his luxury car with pride and superiority now felt foreign and threatening. The skyscrapers he once considered his playground now seemed to mock him. And then, Laurent Tower appeared in the distance, towering, magnificent, gleaming under the afternoon sun like a colossal throne made of steel and glass. The taxi stopped at the grand lobby. Imported marble floors, soaring ceilings, a massive crystal chandelier, dozens of sharply dressed professionals moving with purpose and authority. With what little remained of his former dignity as a CEO, Adrian stepped inside. But before he could take more than a few steps, 2 security guards stopped him. "Excuse me, sir, can we help you?" one asked, politely yet firmly. "I'm Adrian Keller, CEO of Keller Dynamics. I have a meeting with the owner of this building." Even to his own ears, his voice lacked conviction. The guard spoke quietly into his earpiece, then turned back. "I'm sorry, sir, your name is not on today's guest list. You cannot enter without an appointment." Denied at the lobby. A humiliation he had never imagined. The man who once walked red carpets couldn't even pass through a revolving door. "I need to see her. This is important," he snapped, desperation creeping into his voice. People in the lobby began to stare. Just as security was about to escort him out, a private elevator in the corner opened. A sharply dressed young man stepped out, wearing thin-framed glasses. His gaze locked onto Adrian, cold and precise. Adrian recognized him, a board member from Laurent Global Holdings, David. "Let him in," David said calmly. Then he approached Adrian. "Miss Isabella is expecting you." Miss Isabella, not Mrs. Keller. That alone said everything. Adrian followed him into the private elevator in silence. As it ascended smoothly, Adrian caught his reflection in the mirrored wall. A broken man. David didn't look at him once, standing straight, eyes forward, as if Adrian were nothing more than a package to be delivered. The elevator stopped at the top floor, penthouse level. The doors opened to a private corridor that looked more like an art gallery than an office hallway. David led him forward and stopped before a towering double door made of polished mahogany. Without knocking, he opened it. "Please, go in, Mr. Keller." Adrian stepped inside, and his breath caught. The room was vast. His luxury apartment felt like a cage in comparison. One entire wall was glass, revealing a breathtaking panoramic view of New York City. Far below, his own office building looked small, insignificant. The interior was minimalistic, but exuded absolute power. And there, at the center of the room, behind a massive desk, sat Isabella Laurent. This was Isabella, and yet not the Isabella he knew. Her hair, which was once worn simply, was now styled into an elegant modern updo. Gone were the simple house dresses. She wore a perfectly tailored navy power suit that radiated authority. Her makeup was subtle, but sharp. Her face was calm, cold, unreadable. She looked at Adrian, not as a wife, but as a ruler looking at a subordinate who had failed. For a long moment that felt like eternity, they simply stared at each other. Adrian searched her face for the woman who used to cook for him, who used to sleep beside him, but he found nothing. The woman before him was a stranger, a queen seated on her rightful throne. Finally, Adrian spoke, his voice hoarse, trembling. "Isabella, what is all this?" She didn't answer immediately. She simply looked at him with the same cold gaze she'd worn the night he gave her that ultimatum. Slowly she stood. She walked gracefully around her desk and stopped before the massive window, her back facing him. 3 years, Adrian. Her voice was calm,
yet every word carried weight. For 3 years I gave you the chance to become the man my father believed you could be. A pause. But you chose to become the man your mother raised you to be. She turned, her eyes locked onto his, sharp, piercing. Arrogant, entitled, blind. She took a step toward him, then another. Each step carried a quiet power that made Adrian instinctively want to retreat. Back in that storage room, you told me to kneel. You gave me a humiliating ultimatum simply because I showed you the truth about your betrayal. She stopped right in front of him, close, dominant, unshakable. Now, her voice lowered, colder than ever. In my office, in my domain, in my throne room. She looked directly into Adrian's eyes, as if judging him.
"I will give you one chance," Isabella said coldly. "A chance to explain, in front of the entire board tomorrow morning, why I should save what little remains of your pathetic career." That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. The chance Isabella gave him wasn't a blessing. It was a far crueler form of torture. How could he explain the unexplainable? How could he defend himself before a board that clearly stood on her side? The meeting room he would enter tomorrow was no longer his stage. It was his execution chamber. He spent the entire night crafting defenses, searching for loopholes, excuses, justifications, but every sentence sounded hollow, pitiful, even to his own ears. For the first time in his life, Adrian felt truly defeated before the battle had even begun. The next morning, he arrived at Laurent Tower in New York City wearing the same suit as the day before, now wrinkled and lifeless, mirroring his state of mind. David was already waiting in the lobby and escorted him directly to the boardroom. The room was grand, an enormous oak table surrounded by leather chairs. Every member of the board and key shareholders of Laurent Global Holdings was present. These were powerful figures, legends of the business world. They didn't look at him with anger. They looked at him with cold disappointment, as if he were nothing more than a failed investment. Adrian sat alone at the end of the table, like a defendant on trial. At the opposite end sat Isabella. Today she wore a deep maroon dress, elegant, commanding, untouchable. She was no longer his wife. She was the chairwoman of Laurent Global Holdings, the ruler of the room. The meeting began immediately. The head of internal audit presented the findings. On the massive screen, Adrian's collapse unfolded piece by piece. Declining sales hidden by manipulated financial reports, fictitious projects siphoning company funds into personal accounts, ethical violations, his affair with Vanessa Moreau, the scandal that destroyed the Sendana project bid. Each slide, another nail in the coffin of his career. Adrian's face turned pale, sweat dripped down his temple. He tried to interrupt, tried to deny, but the evidence was overwhelming, complete, brutal. Every lie he had ever told was exposed before the most powerful people in the room. When the presentation ended, Isabella looked at him straight. Silence filled the room. "Mr. Adrian Keller," she said calmly. The formality created an unbreachable distance between them. "You have been given the opportunity to provide your explanation. Please proceed." This was it. All eyes were on him. Adrian stood, his legs trembling. Every defense he had prepared vanished.
In front of Isabella, in front of the board, he felt small, naked. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. What could he say? That his ego drove him? That he believed he was entitled to everything? Finally, in a hoarse voice, he said the only thing left. I admit it. Everything in that report is true. I failed as a leader, and I failed as a husband. He looked at Isabella not as a CEO, but as a broken man. Isabella, Enough. Her voice cut him off sharply. This is a business forum, not a marriage counseling session. She turned to the board. Based on the presented evidence and the subject's admission, I propose a motion of no confidence against the CEO of Chakra Wiguna Corporation, Adrian Keller. I recommend immediate termination with cause and full restitution of company losses as calculated by the audit team. A senior board member spoke. Motion accepted. Any objections? Silence. No one objected. The gavel struck the table 3 times. It was over. Everything Adrian had built, his career, his status, his pride, gone in an instant. Despair consumed him. He no longer cared about reputation or power or anything. Only one thing remained: loss. He hadn't just lost his wealth. He had lost a woman far more valuable than all of it. A woman he had foolishly thrown away. Driven by unbearable regret, Adrian did the unthinkable. He staggered forward across the long table, and in front of the entire board, he collapsed to his knees, then lowered himself completely, his forehead touching the cold floor at Isabella's feet. "Isabella, please forgive me." His voice broke into sobs. "I'm sorry. I truly am, for everything I did to you."
Please, give me one more chance to fix everything. The room fell completely silent. The board members shifted uncomfortably at the sight of a grown man crying and kneeling on the floor. But Isabella didn't move. She looked down at Adrian's bowed head with an unreadable expression, cold, distant, empty. His regret, his desperation, his tears, all of it meant nothing now. Slowly, she leaned forward just slightly. Her voice dropped to a soft whisper, yet sharp enough for him to hear clearly. "Your regret has no value, Adrian, just like the apology you demanded from me that night in the warehouse." She straightened again, her voice returning to its firm authority. "Security, take him out." 6 months later. 6 months passed. The skyline of New York City remained the same, towering skyscrapers reaching for the clouds, but the balance of power within them had completely changed. The name Isabella Laurent dominated the business world. No longer hidden in the shadows, she stepped fully into the spotlight, taking over as CEO of Chakra Wiguna Corporation. She restructured the entire management. With precision, intelligence, and unwavering control, she turned the company from the brink of collapse into one of the brightest subsidiaries under Laurent Global Holdings. Her story spread everywhere. A woman who rose from betrayal to reclaim her throne. Her face graced the covers of major business magazines, no longer known as someone's wife, but as a queen in her own right. On the opposite side of life, Adrian and his mother fell to their lowest point. Adrian lost everything. All his assets were seized to repay corporate damages. His name was blacklisted across the corporate world. No company would hire a former CEO disgraced by corruption and ethical violations. His degrees, his experience, worthless. To survive, he took whatever work he could find. The man who once commanded thousands now bowed his head to take orders.
The man who once wore suits worth thousands of dollars now wore worn-out labor uniforms stained with sweat. Eleanor Whitmore, stripped of her luxury life, now lived in a cramped rental house in a crowded neighborhood. No socialite friends, no status, only complaints and regret, blaming Adrian for everything. The final scene. One hot, dusty afternoon, Adrian worked as a laborer in a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. His task? Unloading heavy cargo from trucks into a suffocating storage facility. Sweat soaked his body, his muscles burned. His hands, once smooth, were now calloused and torn. As he paused to rest against the dirty wall, he looked around. Stacks of old boxes, the smell of dust and decay, sunlight piercing through narrow vents. It felt familiar, too familiar. This was exactly like the warehouse where he once punished Isabella. The night everything began to fall apart. A painful realization struck him. Karma. This was karma. He had once placed Isabella here to humiliate her. Now life had placed him here, not for one night, but as his reality. He stared at his rough, filthy hands, the same hands that once signed million-dollar deals. Tears finally fell. Real tears. Not from fear of losing wealth, but from the full weight of his own mistakes. They rolled down his dust-covered face. Meanwhile, at the top of Laurent Tower, in her glass and steel throne, Isabella stood by the window watching the sunset paint the sky of New York City in shades of gold and amber. A warm cup of tea rested in her hand. Her face was calm, peaceful. She had survived the storm and emerged victorious. She didn't just reclaim what was hers, she found her true strength, the strength that had long been hidden behind the role of a patient wife. Her phone vibrated, a message from David. "Miss Laurent, the divorce has been finalized. You are officially free." She read it, and for the first time, a genuine smile appeared. No hatred remained, only relief and quiet closure. She placed her cup down and looked out over the city beneath her, as if it all belonged to her. A new dawn had begun, and this time she would build her future with her own hands.